Hi and welcome to A Life in Chapters. This is episode 4, Books Can Be a Time Machine. So, as I always say, this isn't a fancy podcast. There's no intro music, no editing. It's just me speaking directly into my mic from wherever I happen to be, sharing thoughts and stories about books, journaling, creative work, and the slower rhythms of a meaningful life. And if that sounds like your kind of space, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's episode. So sometimes when we lose someone we love, we spend a long time searching for ways to stay close to them, not just in memory, but in something more alive, something that lets us feel, even briefly, like the lines between past and present have blurred. And for me, one of those ways has always been through books. So this is a very personal story, really, of how I felt connected back, particularly to my mum. So my mum loved to read, particularly detective fiction, authors like P.D. James, Ruth Rendell, and of course, Agatha Christie. She was the kind of reader who always had a book on the go, always knew what she wanted to read next. I remember even when my mum had a lot of illness through her life, but even when we were visiting her in the hospital, if the book trolley came round, she would make sure that we called them over so that she could get the next book. That stands out in my mind so clearly. She was ill from when I was quite a small child, but I always remember her doing that. And as a child, I remember watching her completely absorbed in those worlds, eyes scanning the page, completely still, completely present. And I probably didn't fully understand it then, but I do now. That kind of reading is a form of escape, yes, but also comfort. It's structure, order, a world where things might get messy, but the truth always comes out in the end. And maybe that's why I've been so drawn back to those same books in the years since losing her. There's something powerful about reading a book you know someone else has read, especially someone who meant everything to you. It's like stepping into the same fictional world they once stepped into, reading the same words, seeing the same scenes unfold, meeting the same characters and wondering, just as they did, who done it in the case of detective fiction. And even though my mum's not here to talk about the story or share theories or say what she thought about the ending, I still feel connected to her through those books. It's like our timelines are meeting again just for a while and just between the covers of a book that I know she either read or would have loved. And that might sound sentimental or maybe it's even a little bit strange, but for me it's kind of very real. When I read these books, I picture her with them, the chair she sat in, the time of day, the way she might have paused and made a mental note when a new clue appeared. And because we used to talk about books often, I know she didn't just read passively, she was inside the story, just like I am now when I read. That shared experience, even years apart, becomes a kind of time machine, one that doesn't rely on memory alone, but on something tangible, something I can hold, read, and inhabit. And it's funny, really, because these aren't necessarily cozy books. They're about crime, death, mystery, but somehow they've become a comfort. Maybe it's because justice is always served at the end. We always catch the bad guy. Maybe it's the structure, the reassurance that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Or maybe it's simply the fact that I know my mum loved them, that she was there first, that we spent hours watching TV of these murder mysteries. We would watch the Adam Dalgliesh, we would watch Poirot and Marple, all of them. That became our thing that we did together. And funnily, I also think about how different it might have been if she'd lived in the age of blogs, of Goodreads, or even TikTok. I mean, yes, blogs were around when my mum was still alive, but it wasn't something that she worked on. She wasn't well at that time, but I think she would have loved it. In fact, I know she would. She'd have been writing reviews, sharing recommendations, curating her shelves, filming them. She would have had strong opinions on what made a good twist or why Miss Marple was better than Poirot or the other way round. And how lovely it would be now to go back and read her thoughts in her own words, to know what she really thought of a particular plot, to see what books she reread, to understand more deeply what she valued and noticed and loved. Because while I knew my mum well, I just wish I had more of her voice now, not just memories, but her voice in the world, her writing. And I think that's part of why I share what I read now online in journals, even on this podcast, because I realise that this trail we leave behind of what we loved, what we noticed, what we connected to, it can matter more than we realise. Now, I don't have children, so, in some ways, it doesn't really matter what I'm saying, but hopefully there'll be others out there that might be interested in the same things and might like to listen to this podcast. Sometimes we think sharing our love of books is frivolous, just one more post, one more opinion. But maybe it's something more. Maybe it's a map, a soft kind of legacy, something that someone might read or listen to in the future and just know a little bit about us. Something that speaks even when we're no longer here to say the words ourselves. So grief is strange. It shifts and reshapes itself over time. Some days it's loud, others it's quiet. Sometimes it's a punch to the chest, sometimes it's just a soft ache at the edge of a perfectly normal day. But reading, especially reading the books my mum loved, has been one of the ways I've made peace with her absence. It's not dramatic, it's not magical, it's just a quiet thread, a connection I can keep returning to. I read books that now have just come out that I know that she would love, even from the title. Like, I read a book recently called How to Solve Your Own Murder, and I picked it up in the shop because the title alone, I mean, come on, that's such an amazing title. And I bought the book just on that title alone. I did read the blurb on the back, but I know she would have loved that book too. And it's just a way of staying connected. It's just, a connection, as I said, I can keep returning to. And I know I'm not the only one who finds this kind of connection in reading. Books remind us of the people we used to read with, friends that I used to share books with that I've lost, contact with, the ones who gave us our first novels, the teachers who sparked something in us, the friends who passed along their favourites, the family members whose bookmarks we still keep tucked in pages. Reading is rarely a solitary act, even when we do it alone, because every book holds echoes of the people who've touched it, talked about it, or made it matter to us. So maybe this episode is just a small reminder. Books aren't just entertainment, they're memory, emotion, legacy, and sometimes they can even be connection across time. If there's someone you've lost, someone who loved to read, maybe go back to a book they once read. Let yourself step into the same story they once held in their hands. Let yourself imagine them there with you, seeing the same twists, reacting to the same lines, feeling the same tension. It won't bring them back, but it might bring them closer, just for a while. And maybe that's enough. And if you've got people that are in your life now, talk to them about books, because I think it's such a great way of connecting, and it will be something that always lives on in your mind. And if you're someone who shares your love of books online through reviews, lists, quotes, reflections, don't underestimate how meaningful that is. Don't underestimate how meaningful that TikTok is. You're creating something that might echo further than you realise, not in numbers or likes, but in love, in sharing the love of a book. in remembrance, in the quiet impact of being seen. And really, what more powerful time machine is there than that? If you'd like to go deeper with the ideas from today, whether that's through journaling, book recommendations, or creative business tools, you'll find the show notes and extras at alifeinchapters.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast and be part of a cozy corner of the internet, come and join my Patreon. There are monthly journal prompts, a book club, creative business Q&As, and more. Just head to patreon.com/alifeinchapters or click the link in the notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.